today, and I'm really here just to try as best I can to speak for my friend Dylan. And we just a tiny little synopsis of how our worlds collided. In 2019, I was working on a film about chronic illness, and he became one of the first subjects. And pre-pandemic, we started filming together and then decided, obviously, we couldn't stop connecting with all of these wonderful voices for the film through the pandemic. And so what would have been maybe 6 months of engagement turned into 2.5 years, thanks to the pandemic, and allowed for Dylan to share a lot of his thoughts via essay. At that time, he was writing a lot, but through a device where he, would type every letter out with his eyes. So it was a painstakingly slow process, but he generated a ton of material. And we decided I'm really just his creative collaborator. So a couple of years ago, it was time to take all of what he had written and not just edit it down into what would eventually end up in the film, but to use all of that wisdom in a fuller way. And so that turned into the book that he has now called The Liberation of Being, which I don't know if you can see here, but I'm holding it up, and it's extraordinary. So I'm I'm just his creative collaborator, really, and he's the genius behind it all.
Great. Well, thank you for that, Kimberly, and welcome, Dr. Shanahan. And Kimberly, it's a pleasure to have you here, and we're really looking forward to this. So, my name is Steve Lyons. I've been volunteering with IAM ALS just for about 3 months now. My connection to the organization is my with ALS is my brother is currently living with ALS, and he lives quite a ways from me, so I don't get to see him that often. But I wanted to be of service to some folks that associated with the disease, and I found this program through Brian Wallach's social media work, and I became aware of it. So the way thank you for that. So the way this is going to work is Dr. Shanahan is going to share with us a chapter from his amazing book. Um, as Christy had said, the Scribes of Strength team had a chance to read that ahead of time, and we've come up with a list of questions to share with Dr. Shanahan, and we are also going to have Kimberly help us out with some additional context because of his ability to just provide yes and no answers to our questions. So with that, I'll give that over to Kimberly and Dr. Shanahan.
So Dylan, I know your aid is there, and I'm imagining it's queued up, but we might wait a minute as they get this ready to go. So just a little context, this is the chapter in his book. It's called Be More, Do Less. And it's all of the chapters in the book are extraordinary and could stand alone as profound monologues or recipes for how to live well. But this one in particular is pretty profound.
There's just so everyone could see. There's there we go. The name of the book
Mhm.
is again Dr. Dylan Shanahan and Liberation of Being.
And
We'll
the
provide a
subtitle
yeah.
is Allowing Terminal Illness to Teach Us How to Live.
Chapter 18. Be More, Do Less. As a chronic overachiever and type of personality, I have historically associated my self-worth with what I could do, produce, or accomplish. When my right arm and dominant hand first weakened, I had to contend with the reality that I could no longer perform many of the tasks I was used to doing. After the diagnosis was official, I had to surrender to a future where I would be totally dependent on others for my survival. Right up there with the fear of mortality was my perceived loss of the ability to be of service. I was so afraid to let go of my attachments to the role and career I had envisioned for myself. It was devastating to not be able to practice medicine as I planned after almost 7 years of medical school. The fear of not being of service was worse than what was happening to my body. Little by little, I learned to find new meaning in the process of decline. I began interpreting it as an invitation to be more and do less. This became my catchphrase. Be more, do less. At first glance, this may seem like a contradiction, as though by saying to be more, I am saying we are not enough as we are. But it's precisely the opposite. Not be more, as in increase what you are. Be more as in be you more often. Be more, do less. Because in truth, being is a radical act of doing. And when you see the truth of it, the truth of being yourself, you can do anything. Being of service had always been my purpose. That's why I had been working so hard for years to become a doctor, so I could really make an impact in the world. I chose naturopathic and Chinese medicine because those paradigms have the most to offer in terms of wellness and liberating our full, vibrant potential. But when I was diagnosed with ALS, I had to reevaluate my purpose, or at least reinterpret what it meant. What is the meaning of my life if I can no longer be of service? Why do I matter? Why am I here? How can we begin to quantify the value of a life? First, we might rule out the obvious reasons why I don't benefit society. I can't work, so the state pays for my food, ongoing medical expenses, and housing at a home that is staffed with nurses for people on ventilators. Medicaid has provided me with incredibly expensive equipment that facilitates my mobility and communication. The Department of Education has canceled the enormous student loans I took out to get through medical school. Clearly, I am not here to be a surplus contributor to the economic growth of our GDP, though I would argue purpose is never a mere cog in the wheel of the capitalistic machine. Neither can I justify my existence on some grand scale of productivity. Everything I do is slow. I'm on a horse-drawn wagon in the face of the steam train in the Industrial Revolution. My mind might move at the speed of light, but my output is limited by my eyes and tablet interface. What was already a slow process of typing with my eyes has become even slower and laborious as I have developed problems with my eyes. Now I am not even on a horse. More like a mule. And a stubborn mule at that. I aspired to become an author, although the current reality of such slow typing makes writing anything more of that length hard to imagine. It would need to be something short, hopefully dense with meaning and guidance, say poetry or a formula, E equals mc squared. Still, there are many days that I am feverishly sick and cannot muster the energy to do much of anything. For now, it is reasonable to conclude that I will not benefit society by the many books I will leave behind. With these physical struggles, what can I hope to tangibly give future generations? In truth, equating our worth based on what we can produce is purely fictional, a falsified materialization of the soul and spirit. No one's value is dependent on what they can do, rather it's inherent in who they are. Our worth is simply in being. Being is doing. It's futile for anyone to base their worth on what they can produce, make, or do. And yet that is precisely what we're taught. The reward model is so tempting. Who can resist? Certainly, what we do is important and has value. But if we overemphasize doing relative to being, then those of us with disabilities or chronic diseases can never do enough. but who can be more, do less. There is a section in the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Medicine, a foundational classical text of Chinese medicine, where it discusses two sustaining energy sources that enable our lives. One is called prenatal energy, considered your essence and not readily replenished. Some say you only have what you are born with. The other energy source is called postnatal energy, which has three sources. The first two are rather intuitive. We get energy from the food we eat and the air we breathe. The third source comes from living in accordance with our heavenly mandate. Because of free will, I don't translate this energy source as destiny. Rather, that is what heaven wants for us, we naturally want for ourselves. This is not something we want with our ego, like wanting to be famous. It is something we want to live in our hearts. This heart's desire is what I am calling purpose. I believe our divinity is within our humanity. Your purpose is your path, and your path is your purpose. In Taoism, this is the way. When we are in sync with our purpose, it brings postnatal energy or ki. I feel it as a spontaneous momentum in my life. When I am living my purpose, the path I am on moves with me, like an airport walkway. My purpose has not changed, even though my circumstances have. I am still here to be of service, a large part of which is contributing to the awakening of the full capacity of human consciousness. I could ask myself, then, how does my current situation serve my purpose? The intense busy schedule of my double doctorate programs left little time for esoteric practices like meditation and prayer. Now that I am living the hermit's life, I have ample opportunity. Similarly, writing has always been an indispensable outlet for my creative expression. I have plenty of time for that now, alongside the blessing of technology and eye movement. I have also explored unconventional avenues to utilize my medical training, like online health consulting with an emphasis on holistic wellness, body, mind, and spirit. When I couldn't move my body, I connected with the non-physical aspect of self, my inner source. This allowed me to unload the things that hid in my basement, things that caused me to feel like I was operating at a deficit, as though I needed to make up for some darkness of character. More and more, I began to feel that I could be whole and content with who I am. This was when I started to really feel a shift, and at the same time my friends started an online fundraiser and things got posted on Facebook. Love and support came pouring in when I finally gave it to myself. Even though what I have gone through is so far removed from our typical experience it can seem unimaginable, I often recognize that the lessons I learned through my ALS experience are applicable to everyone. I like to say that one door closes, two doors open. The possibilities are endless. It's all about how we frame circumstances. A few years ago, I was an able-bodied individual about to begin a career as a doctor. And then I wasn't. That loss of identity and social status was paramount. Those are transient parts of our external validation and ego, which my circumstances dismantled in the extreme. But surpassing the death of my identity and status opened a new space in me, the space for more authentic identification as a human spirit. This level of surrender through my life and disease process benefits us all. I may not be able to do everything I did before, certainly not in the same way. Nor can I do as much. But I can always find ways to serve. I have come to realize that in my state of being, I can be just as influential, if not more so than I could have writing prescriptions as a doctor. I've always believed that my purpose in life was critical, but from when my symptoms started till now, it has literally become my lifeline, a North Star to guide me through the challenging terrain of life. No matter how dark the night becomes while drifting at sea, I am never lost. My North Star shines bright, guiding me as I steer my rudder. Living our purpose, living our Tao, is wind in our sails, the compass and momentum to reach that other shore. With great hardship comes an equivalent potential for spiritual growth. Our ability to make use of the hardships through our purpose can be the path to survive anything, even thrive. We who live with incurable challenging diseases have tapped into resiliency and breathed it into the world. I can say that I have endured lifetimes of hardships, and now, because my life has been whittled down to the most essential elements, I have increased potential for growth and spiritual revelations. My purpose allows me to reframe the most gut-wrenching experiences I've been through, like the general inability to move my body to practice the martial art I love, like the discomfort of living with a tube in my lungs, like the body terror of suffocating from accidents around my ventilator. During that wild night when I was nearly suffocating for hours with no way to call for help, my clarity of purpose gave me the strength I needed. Even in the agony of that moment, I could see how being up close and personal with my fears of death was helping me grow. Accepting the reality of the moment with an open heart, resting in equanimity, showed me a reality beyond fear, a truth of myself, and all of us, beyond the physical realm. Just as the birthing process is one of the most extraneous and painful experiences but also brings forth life, through my enduring such humbling and painful experiences, I too am birthing life into the world. Like weeds growing up through cracks in the concrete, the life of consciousness emerges in our materialistic consumer culture. And by sharing my experiences, both dark and light, I can continue to serve my purpose of serving others. I am an exaggeration of universal truths, and that is what I offer the world. Extreme circumstances expand our awareness of what is possible. The contradictions of my life's experiences awaken our hearts to the power of our own potential, simply by being who we are and living in alignment with our unique purpose. We don't have to fight what is happening. We can use equanimity to be at peace, which brings us the energy we need for any circumstance. On a more practical level, I am or hope to be an example of contentment with living. Being alive is the supreme miracle. To be able to experience life in the full spectrum of its natural ebb and flow is the greatest gift. I try to keep that in mind every day. It helps me feel grateful for my existence, simply to be alive. How would the world change if people were more content with their lives? What if we could appreciate the simple things? A sunset, the beauty of the changing seasons, a warm cup of tea with a friend, a meal with family, or a gentle breeze. We take so much for granted. I matter to the world because, if I can be content with my life, if I can be at peace with what is, I can help change the tide. I can counter the black hole in the heart of our discontent society that sucks the light from life. Call it the collective consciousness or reaching out with my feelings, but my continued appreciation for life, while living in the most extreme circumstances, aids our return to the universally shared purpose of spiritual growth. The miracle of life cannot be bought or sold. It is only to be honored for the sacred gift it is. The miracle of your life cannot be bought or sold. You have permission to honor yourself for the sacred gift that you are. We are all people of implicit value. I hope my life clarifies this as a human being and not as a human doing. Even though I barely leave my home, the resonating truth of who I am as a living spirit is felt throughout the collective human consciousness. One of my favorite quotes from Paul Selig reflects this: "The vibration you hold is how you serve." Slow as it is, I will continue to share what I have until I can't, and then I will simply be. My value approaches infinity as I approach the promised land, the spiritual spring of inner knowing that I am here. The purification and presence that I bring to the spirit of my circumstances ripple throughout eternity. We're all open pianos, a sack of vibrating particles held together with quantum strings. I will always exist as a vibration in the world, emanating outward to others across space and time. So will you. I invite you to come resonate with my court of peace and love. Simply let yourself be.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shanahan. Wonderful. Very meaningful, thought-provoking, and insightful. So awesome, awesome stuff. Thank you. Okay, so just to reiterate a couple of the ground rules, I've got a set of questions that we're going to work with Kimberly and Dr. Shanahan on. If you have some comments or questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat, and we will be sure to get them included. So thank you for that. Okay. Dr. Shanahan, do you feel that being can be more impactful than doing? Can you?
Yes, I will narrate what I see, so this is a clear yes.
Awesome. Do you see your journey as universally applicable to others, regardless of their health status?
Yes.
Did accepting your limitations help you find inner peace, and then how?
Yes.
Kimberly, do you have any?
Yeah, I'll expand on that one. It was fun for me to see him answer this one actually, because like I mentioned in the intro, I did not know Dylan prior to ALS, but I do know that he has always been on a powerful spiritual path, or that's what I've learned from him. So I actually wasn't sure how he would answer this. I thought, maybe he was already Buddha before ALS came around. But I do, knowing his answer now, I feel like I've heard him speak a lot about equanimity and the power, and what he means by equanimity is this balance between the poles of opposites, craving and repulsion, or limitation and ability. And he's allowed himself to rest in the balance of those without judgment. And I think without judgment is a huge part of that. It's so easy for us to go, this is good and this is bad. And he's written, in fact, he focuses a lot on this in the book. For him, the growth of his soul, for the growth of his soul to occur, this experience of this disease needed to be exactly what it was. And so that tying into his purpose and surrendering to whatever that was supposed to look like has been a really powerful part of this experience of peace that I do sense that he has now. And he's also not fatalistic. He goes into saying like, no, believe me, I chased all the cures. I'm still praying for a miracle. It's not like he's just going, yay, this is great, and I surrender. But we can hold both of them at the same time.
Great. Thank you for that. So as a sort of a follow-up to that, Dr. Shannon, is contentment with life an essential part of your personal peace?
Yes.
Right. One of the things that I heard too, that this thought about gratitude and for simple things. And do you believe that gratitude for the simple things can transform lives?
Yes.
And that transforming lives in what has happened to you. Do you view your ALS journey as a new path to serve others?
Looks like a yes to me.
And then you obviously with the book and these types of things, but are there other things that you're doing to serve others? I don't, Kimberly, if you could help out with that one too.
Yeah, well, and I think he alluded to this in this chapter that he read as well. I feel like because the spiritual journey is so central to Dylan's life story, it's um, it's powerful to look at how disease, and especially ALS, really strips away everything. Loss of identity, social status, goals, careers, all those things fall away. And with that, there's this new space that opens up. And he talks about how this authentic identification with himself as a human spirit benefits everyone. And that, even the Paul Selig quote that he used at the end, it's like this vibration that a human being can hold is resonates out into the universe. And I think that's really important because we're so focused in our culture on like, well, what can we tangibly put out there in the world? And Dylan really makes a case for allowing this cultivation of spirit and presence to be an extreme value in the universe, and actually balancing out this other force in society, which is very discontented and depressed and hopeless. So he's adding to the light.
Great. I'm gonna change up here a little bit and cover off on some issues on vulnerability. And so, Dr. Shannon, has embracing your limitations made you more comfortable with authentic vulnerability?
Yes.
And do you see that vulnerability as a source of strength in serving others and just being of service?
Yes.
Great. Um, so now another one, yes, no, and then Kimberly, maybe you could help out a bit. So has AS allowed you to reach others in ways that you hadn't anticipated?
Yes.
Well, obviously, in a session like this, it's great. But how
Yeah.
else has have you been able to reach out to others and share?
Well, it was sort of an accident. It started, I mean, Dylan already, as I've learned through connecting with his circles and writing this book, because there were some interviews that took place to fill in some of the gaps of his story in the book. But Dylan has always cultivated a strong community of friends. It was profound to meet his inner circle of human beings because they freaking adore him. And so I know each and every one of those individuals that he has touched are forever changed because of their relationship with Dylan. And so those continue. Of course, we started this filming and he was able to communicate a lot of his inner world through some of the questions that I asked for the film. And then I distributed those out on the Disorder channel and YouTube and through various social media channels. And those continue to get passed around. And I'll tell you, 20 individuals were part of this docuseries. Everyone talks about Dylan. I mean, I love all the others and they were all incredible, but everyone remembers Dylan. And I'm not just saying that. I just think that there is a voice and a resonance that people feel when Dylan speaks that transcends the disease and transcends even disease itself and speaks to humanity and what we all face through different hardships. So Dylan has a universal message that speaks to many. And then the third piece obviously is through his book. As I've said to many people, this isn't a book. This is a book for anyone living with chronic or terminal illness, but it's also for anyone. And I've known many people that have read this that don't have even a chronic illness and that they feel like their life has changed because of the messages that he shares. So many ways, he was going to be in a clinic helping individual patients as a practicing naturopath and Chinese medicine practitioner, but now he's touching a wide diversity of human beings. So
Wonderful. So, if you could, there's a question in the chat about the film. If you
uh-huh.
could share information about that film. So,
Oh, yes. So, like I mentioned, because of the pandemic, we turned it into a docu-series. So it is not a film. It is a 2-year long project where every month these 20 individuals answered questions about their experiences living with certain diseases. And these weren't like questions about like, what do you eat? They were more about questions of what are your lifelines and who are your caregivers and heroes. And we really explored the highs and the lows of these experiences. We weren't trying to tie a fancy bow on top of these experiences. We were trying to explore the whole spectrum. So you can find all of those for free on YouTube, and it's the Unfixed Media is where you can find the Unfixed docu-series. And Dylan is there I think you participated in for over 2 months. I think you did 23 of the 24 episodes, which is
wow.
pretty incredible.
We may need to invite you back to do a series on those.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really, really fun questions we explored. Even intimacy. I mean, we talked about sex I mean, the answers that we generated were just incredible. So
Great. So, a link to that series is Emily just posted that. We
yeah.
also have a comment from Juan Reyes. So thank you, Juan. And Dr. Shanahan, you have put into words what I can't explain to others. That being is of itself a monumental task. As such, it is worthy of acceptance of oneself and others. This is difficult to help others understand once you've realized this yourself. Thank you for so eloquently sharing.
Mm.
Well, thank you. So, I have a personal connection to the vibration, and going about that. And so one of the other questions was, do you believe that being can create that ripple effect that benefits others? And you talked about that vibration, and you've shared a little bit of stories, but yeah, that definitely has an impact, correct?
Yes.
Great. And then with that, vulnerability and vibration and bringing out to others, has your experience shown that your self-worth is based on who we are rather than what we accomplish?
Yes.
And then, Kim, I don't know if you can add any
Yeah.
additional.
Yeah, and I think he talked about this in the beginning of the chapter, Be More, Do Less, where originally he was type A and had a whole laundry list of accomplishments and all the ways he was going to serve. And those were all very much worked into his self-worth and identity. And that's not to anyone's fault. That's just what our society does. But instead, because of ALS and because of his wisdom, he turned inwards and looked at, how can I find my self-worth based on who I am. And I think what really was essential to that is re-identifying his purpose or realigning to his purpose, and then asking, how does my current situation serve my purpose? And so that's what I really think he's been doing all along. How does this situation serve my purpose? And going back to his self-esteem and self-worth, I think it's pretty clear to say that if Dylan is fulfilling his purpose, he's happy with who he is in this world. So, and I think that might be true for everyone. But we first have to identify what our purpose is. And for him to find that contentedness with who he is and how the disease process is serving his purpose, he was able to shift more into a deep understanding of his value in this world.
Great. Now, I can't let us get through this without asking a few questions about his training and your education, Dr. Shanahan. So, since you're a doctor of naturopathic and Chinese medicine, do you encourage acupuncture and other forms of Chinese medicine for caregivers, including your own, to help reduce stress and promote emotional well-being so they can provide better care and support?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think because this question got looped in there because November is caregiver month, and so although we're here to get perspective and hear from Dr. Shanahan, it's important that we also cover off on the caregivers.
And Steve, I'll add, I know Dylan gets acupuncture, and I know he gets regular massage. And I'm sure, and does regular qigong sessions. So, and many of us think of qigong as obviously physical movement, but for him, he does this movement of energy within himself. So, all
Cool.
three of those are very powerful.
So now you just answered one of the other questions: is do you bring your years of Aikido and other medicine practices into your ALS journey as a coping technique?
Yes.
How about techniques all along the same theme here? How about around techniques such as meditation and breathing exercise to help manage stress and maintain emotional balance?
Are you asking me that, or is that
To Dr. Shanahan.
okay. Yes.
Yeah, I think meditation and breathing is good for all souls. Absolutely. Okay. Is there any questions so far in the chat?
You guys didn't ask any no questions. It was all yeses.
We might have done that on purpose.
Actually, I heard a really good no question. We did a podcast a few weeks ago, and the host said, has your purpose changed since developing ALS? And Dylan said no, which I thought was so cool, which, is a testament to who he's been for a long time.
Steve, to answer your question, we don't have any questions yet, but I want to go back and read some of the comments from some of the people that weren't addressed.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So after Dr. Shanahan, after his chapter was read, Randy said, "Thank you, Dr. Shanahan. God bless." Christy commented, "Love that equanimity of balance, rest in the balance of this without judgment." Randy added, "Living in the present with hope." Let's see. And then you read Juan's comment. Let me see what else we have. Let's see. So we do have a question. Do you visualize, this one is for Dr. Shanahan, do you visualize physical activities like Aikido, surfing, etc., imagining yourself doing them?
Yes. Wow, that's so cool. I didn't know the answer to that one.
And then we don't have anything
Any
else.
other thoughts or comments that
Well,
folks
I'll
would?
add around the Aikido. I copied a little section here because I knew you were going to bring that bit up. And I think one of the things that has been paramount for the way that Dylan's approached his experience with ALS is drawn from Aikido, which, as he says, in the dojo, all confrontations in everyday life have the potential to refine the self. And so in combat, in Aikido, they experience confrontation as actually something to bow to, something to embrace and recognize as a valuable, I don't know the word, but that as something that's valuable. And he even said Aikido practitioners will develop the habit of responding to opponents with the power of love and binding them with your affection. And so I think as we use ALS as the metaphor, as the opponent in an Aikido dojo, he's been seeing that or relating it to it with the power of love. And I think that's just been an incredible metaphor and tool for all. It is an incredible tool for all of us.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
So
Trinity, sorry,
go
Trinity
ahead.
had a question.
Actually, I just had a statement. I just, in your comment about it being caregiver month, having been um n- a caregiver for Dr. Shanahan, um, in different ways, I can't say how giving it is back to caregivers to be part of a journey of somebody who is so respectful of the process and the energy that just kind of goes into it. The gift that is given back when you're in his presence is more than what any person who is completely verbal could ever give. Um, he says so much with his eyes, and his compassion and respect for who you are as a person is just absolutely mirrored in his energy. And I wish you all had the opportunity to be in his presence because it is amazing. And yes, Dylan, I did read your book. It took me a bit to have the courage to read your book, but I did. And I have fallen in love with it. And it is everything that I think I have felt when I have been around you. So it is truly such a gift that you are able to share in that way because I wish that everyone could be in your presence to receive those same gifts. So your book is an amazing way to share that.
Thank you, Jenny. But we'll give while we're up. I was going to say we'll give a shout out to Faith there for to thank her as well. Trinity, you raise a good point, and one of the other questions is around that perspective and experience, and so Dr. Shannon, do societal views on independence and dependency need to change to better support those with chronic conditions and diseases and illnesses like ALS?
Yes.
Yeah, I think Kimberly, you probably have side by side with him on through this journey and seeing how. And look, I think that's one of the uh, things that IAM ALS is trying to do is to raise awareness and educate and let people see whether it's those living or supporting or caregiving or even just the regular general population.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I second what Trinity shared. And I know that the plants that Dylan has in his space would also raise their hands if they could. I can't tell you, walking into Dylan's space, it is everything thrives. There truly is something about the peace and the energy and the vibrancy that he has cultivated through this experience, that everyone benefits as soon as they walk into his room. So I think that's a beautiful reciprocal energy that I think you've expressed beautifully, Trinity.
It's a vibration. That's what it is. It
Mhm.
emanates out for
Yeah.
sure.
So Juan has a comment. If I could bow out of respect, Sensei, directed at Dr. Shanahan, I would. Alas, I cannot due to ALS, but in my mind, I am.
Mhm.
Wonderful. I think I've hit all of the prepared questions. Well, again, open it up if people want to share or have any thoughts or comments.
I have a question for Trinity. As a former caregiver myself, I would love for you to share some, a couple of highlights for anybody here who is either a current caregiver or working with a caregiver. So some tips or takeaways that they could share back with their person.
So I have to get okay from Dylan to do that because otherwise that would be HIPAA. Because I'm a medical caregiver,
Oh,
not
got it.
a
Got it.
so
Okay.
so Dylan, can I just share my interaction with you and how it has benefited me? Yes. Okay. So I'm a speech pathologist. Let me just say that. And I'm am the one that helped Dylan with his communication device. And so that is, so I've been through this journey with him for quite a while, on and off in various different avenues. But I think some of the most important things that Dylan sh has shared with me is that, you know, again, being a speech pathologist and having a very large caseload, all I do is ALS. And so, but what Dylan gives back is just that's what's so important. Even though I come to offer help because he needs help from me, he gives so much back. And that is what makes the biggest difference. It's that respect, that energy that you get when you're with him, to where he looks at you and like he cares about you. And if you don't feel well, because he's so in tune, he can tell that you don't feel well. And when I say you don't feel well, it's not just about your physical being, it's about how you're feeling, and being respectful of that in that space. And has always been, no matter how much he has needed from me, I've always felt as though he is willing to give of his energy, of his kindness, of his thoughtfulness, of his respect, which as a medical provider is something that we're not used to. Um, and that has always been there. Again, the respect, the kindness, the understanding, the awareness of where you might be that day when you come to provide him with help. And when he asks you, how are you? He really wants to know, how are you?
Mhm.
Um, and that I can't, that feeling, I can't say enough. It's just so important. And it doesn't have to be, a long, lengthy word. It can be just understanding kindness, compassion, all of the above is important, received from somebody with ALS to a caregiver and provider. And I have never felt that Dylan has anything but offered that, despite how much he needed from me or whatever challenging situation that he was in. And I think it's important.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Hmm.
Well, we have 3 minutes left. So if there's any final questions that you want to ask or put into the chat, we can get those read. I will put together a short follow-up after this and set it out to all the participants. We'll put all of Dylan's information in there, the name of his book. We'll put the link that Emily shared for the docu-series. I'm going to circle back to you, Kimberly, about that. And we will also get this posted onto our YouTube channel. It probably won't, that part won't happen probably till next week or the week following week because of Thanksgiving. And then I'll circle back and share that out with everybody as well.
Can I mention one thing about the book? I think people are coming from all over here today, and it's quite easy to get an ear from your local library. And we were able to do that here and with the Multnomah Library in Portland. And so if you are inspired to reach out to your libraries and ask if they would carry Dylan's book, there are many ways that we can keep his message alive for a long time. And I'm just always trying to find ways to do that. So I like to mention that because it's quite easy to do. And if you need me to send links or whatever to do that, let me know, Christy.
So we do a ALS Awareness Month in May leading up to Lou Gehrig Day, and we actually have our library campaign. So we work with libraries, big, small, local schools to highlight and showcase books about ALS. So I'll definitely connect with you about how we can get Dylan's book as part of that campaign.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
A friend of mine just recently also said universities. I think this book would be an incredible book for a professor to bring into university studies, philosophy classes, chronic illness. I mean, there's so many different variations on where that could go.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to connect with you about that and a couple other things too, because we do a Tim Lowry panel series with universities. We do occupational therapy students, medical students, nursing students, all kinds, and we can add this to part of that discussion. So,
super cool.
There's one comment in the chat. From Juan, Mega's offered to others that when friends ask how they can help, have a jar with small tasks that will help you. For example, cleaning out the pantry, household chores they can randomly pick. Oh, I love that idea, Juan. That's a great idea. So, all right. Well, thank you. Thank you all. Kristen says, thank you for your wisdom. Thank you, Dr. Shanahan, for being here. We really, really appreciated everything that you had to share. Thank you, Kimberly, for helping us out. And Steve, you did an amazing job as our moderator. So thank you all. And you'll be hearing from me soon.
Yay.
Be well.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
Bye.